Let's start with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This game is an absolute treasure. It's got everything you'd want from a thrilling adventure game, puzzles to crack, action-packed sequences, and just the right amount of exploration to keep things exciting without ever feeling overwhelming. The gameplay strikes this awesome balance between action and problem-solving. The game knows how to keep you on your toes, with sequences that demand quick reflexes and sharp thinking. Whether it's timed challenges or encounters that require strategy, it's always engaging and never repetitive. The variety is really what keeps the game feeling fresh, all the way through. One of the best parts of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is how interactive it feels. The mechanics are intuitive, giving you just enough guidance without ever holding your hand. You're free to explore and experiment, and the game rewards curiosity. Trying out different approaches often leads to discovering something cool, whether it's a hidden detail or a unique way to tackle a challenge. Another big win is how the game handles pacing. It's got this fantastic rhythm, where moments of high-stakes action are perfectly balanced by quieter periods of exploration or problem-solving. It's not just a non-stop adrenaline rush. It gives you time to breathe and take in the experience. That flow makes the entire adventure feel dynamic and keeps you hooked from start to finish. So, if you're into games that mix action, puzzles, and exploration into one exciting package, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is absolutely worth checking out. Next we have Unholy. Unholy is all about balance, balancing tension with exploration, stealth with strategy, and action with moments where you just need to stop and think. It's got this really neat flow, where every challenge feels like it's testing a different part of your skill set. The stealth mechanics are so good. The game gives you plenty of tools to sneak around, and it's really satisfying to figure out the best way to move through an area. It's not just about staying out of sight, it's about thinking ahead, being creative, and making the most out of the tools at your disposal. And let's be real, there's nothing quite as rewarding as successfully sneaking past a threat without getting caught. And then there are the puzzles. If you love a good brain teaser, you're in for a treat. The puzzles in Unholy aren't just thrown in for the sake of it. They're thoughtfully designed to make you feel clever when you solve them. They encourage you to pay attention, think outside the box, and experiment. Plus, they're integrated so seamlessly into the game that they never feel out of place. One thing that really stands out is how interactive the game feels. Everything in Unholy is deliberate, and every action you take seems to have weight. Whether you're using your abilities to solve a tricky problem, or carefully planning your next move to avoid danger, there's this constant sense of immersion. The game really nails that you are in this world feeling. What makes Unholy so engaging is its ability to keep you curious. Next we have Alone in the Dark. It's not your typical action game. It's designed to make you think about your surroundings, your choices, and how you tackle obstacles. Puzzles are a big part of the fun here. They're clever, without being overly complicated. They keep you engaged and make you feel like a genius when you figure things out. Combat is another element that stands out. It's not just about fighting. It's about staying calm under pressure and using the tools at your disposal wisely. The game does a great job of keeping you on your toes, but it never feels overwhelming. It's the kind of combat that rewards precision and quick thinking. And when you come out on top, you feel like you've truly earned it. What's really fun about Alone in the Dark is the way it balances tension and exploration. You'll find yourself inching through corridors or cautiously investigating new areas. But it's not all about fear. There's a genuine sense of curiosity that drives you to keep exploring. And let's talk about the pacing. Alone in the Dark knows how to keep things interesting. It has this great rhythm where it alternates between slower, more thoughtful moments and bursts of action or intensity. That ebb and flow keeps you engaged and makes every part of the game feel meaningful. The mechanics are solid too. The game gives you plenty of ways to interact with the world, and it feels intuitive without being overly simplistic. Whether you're managing your inventory, piecing together clues, or navigating through tricky encounters, everything feels polished and deliberate. Next we have Slitterhead. What makes Slitterhead special is its gameplay. This isn't your typical run and gun, or even your average survival horror. It's a clever mix of combat, exploration, and tension. The controls feel smooth and intuitive, which is critical when you're navigating situations that can flip from calm to chaos in a second. Every button press feels purposeful, and that's what you want in a game like this. No fumbling around when things heat up. Combat is where things really shine. There's a great sense of flow to the mechanics, where timing and strategy matter just as much as quick reflexes. It's not about mindlessly swinging or shooting your way through. It's about thinking on your feet. The variety of tools and techniques at your disposal keeps every encounter fresh and exciting. You'll find yourself experimenting with different approaches, trying to figure out the most effective or sometimes the most stylish way to handle things. And let me tell you, the challenge is just right. It's not punishing to the point of frustration, but it's also not handing out victories on a silver platter. There's this constant push and pull where you feel tested but never overwhelmed. That balance is key, especially in a game that thrives on keeping you on edge. Another standout feature is how the game encourages exploration. It's not just about running from point A to point B. It's about really looking around and taking everything in. There are so many little details to discover, whether it's hidden gameplay mechanics, clever environmental puzzles, or new ways to interact with the world. Next we have Mortal Shell. If you've ever enjoyed games that make you think before you act, this one is for you. It's all about precision, timing, and strategy. Charging headfirst into a fight, not gonna work. You've got to study your enemies, figure out their patterns, and choose the right moment to strike. It's like a dance where every move counts, and when you nail it, it feels so rewarding. The combat system is where Mortal Shell really shines. It's deliberate and methodical, with a weightiness that makes every action feel significant. It's not about mashing buttons. It's about committing to your decisions, swinging your weapon, dodging, blocking. Each move feels impactful, and that's what makes the fights so intense. And then there's the hardening mechanic. This is such a cool feature that sets the game apart. At any moment, you can turn your character to stone to absorb a hit. It sounds simple, but in practice, it adds a whole new layer to the combat. Timing is everything. Do you harden mid-attack to catch your opponent off guard? Use it defensively to avoid a crushing blow? It's such a clever mechanic that keeps every battle dynamic and exciting. The progression system also deserves some love. It's not just about leveling up and getting stronger. It's about understanding the tools the game gives you and learning how to use them effectively. Exploration is another standout aspect of Mortal Shell. The game rewards curiosity in a big way. There are hidden paths, secrets to uncover, and moments that make you feel like a genius for figuring things out. It's the kind of game where paying attention and taking your time pays off in spades. So suit up, grab your weapon, and prepare to dive into a world that's as challenging as it is rewarding. Next we have Shattered, Tale of the Forgotten King. This one really stands out in how it combines exploration, combat, and a touch of mystery to keep you hooked. You're encouraged to move at your own pace, taking the time to uncover secrets and figure out the best way to approach challenges. The game feels like it respects your curiosity, rewarding you for paying attention and diving into its world headfirst. Combat is another big highlight. It's got this deliberate, skill-focused style that keeps you on your toes. Every fight feels like a puzzle you're solving in real time. Do you go in aggressively, or do you wait for the perfect moment to counter? Timing is everything, and the way the game pushes you to master its mechanics makes every victory feel hard-earned and incredibly satisfying. What really sets Shattered apart is the mix of gameplay styles. It's not just a combat game, and it's not just about exploration. It's a blend of both, and the way it switches things up keeps the experience fresh. You might spend time carefully navigating a tricky area, only to suddenly find yourself in a high-stakes battle. It's that variety that keeps you constantly engaged. Now, one of the coolest aspects of Shattered is how it invites you to experiment and adapt. The game doesn't hold your hand. It gives you the tools and lets you figure things out. There's a real sense of freedom in how you approach challenges, whether it's using your abilities in clever ways or taking a different route to avoid trouble altogether. That feeling of discovery is one of the game's biggest strengths. Tale of the Forgotten King is about the journey. It's about embracing the unknown. Next we have Mortal Kombat 1. You know how some fighting games make you feel like you're mashing buttons, hoping for the best? Not here. Mortal Kombat 1 manages to strike that perfect balance between approachable for newcomers and deep enough for the hardcore crowd. The accessibility options deserve a shout-out too. Fighting games can sometimes feel like an exclusive club where only the most dedicated players thrive, but Mortal Kombat 1 welcomes everyone. Tutorials? Check. Training modes? Double check. And the inputs for moves are forgiving enough that even your friend who's never touched a controller before can still have fun and maybe even land a killer fatality. The controls are responsive, the pacing is satisfying, and pulling off a special move feels ridiculously rewarding. And the fatalities? Without spoiling anything, of course. The creativity here is just off the charts. It's like the developers sat in a room and asked, how can we make players' jaws drop every single time? And then they delivered. It's gruesome, it's over the top, and somehow it's hilarious in that classic Mortal Kombat way. But what really keeps me coming back is the variety in gameplay. Sure, the main fights are the meat of the experience, but there's so much to explore beyond that. The game isn't just about smashing buttons in endless matches. It gives you reasons to keep playing, whether it's unlocking cool stuff or experimenting with different characters. Bottom line, jump in, throw some punches, and enjoy the chaos. Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't hold back. Next we have Wild Hearts. If you're into action-packed gameplay with a side of creativity, this game has so much to offer. One of the standout features of Wild Hearts is how it blends fast-paced action with thoughtful planning. The combat is exhilarating. It's all about timing, movement, and making the most of your arsenal. But it's not just about swinging weapons around. There's a real depth here, with mechanics that reward skill and experimentation. The more you dive into the systems, the more rewarding it gets. Speaking of mechanics, the game gives you some seriously cool tools to work with. Without giving too much away, let's just say you've got plenty of options for creativity during battles. Whether you're crafting clever solutions on the fly, or using unique gadgets to gain the upper hand, it's all about thinking outside the box. These tools aren't just gimmicks, they're integral to how you play, and they add a fresh layer of strategy to every encounter. The gameplay loop in Wild Hearts is super satisfying. It strikes that perfect balance between challenge and reward, so you always feel like you're making progress, even when things get tough. There's a sense of accomplishment when you figure out the best way to tackle a tough enemy or complete a tricky task. And the game does a great job of giving you new challenges to keep things exciting, so it never feels like you're just going through the motions. Another thing that really stands out is how fluid and responsive the controls feel. Every action, from dodging to attacking to using your tools, feels natural and precise. That precision is key when you're in the middle of a heated battle. Next we have Bleak Faith, Forsaken. It's a bold, ambitious title that wants you to explore, experiment, and embrace a little bit of chaos. It's challenging in all the right ways, striking that balance between rewarding and punishing. Every encounter feels like a mini test of skill. Whether it's combat or exploration, there's a sense that the game wants you to think before you act. Rushing in blindly? Probably not your best move here. But when you take your time, plan things out, and adapt to the situation, the payoff is so satisfying. Speaking of combat, it's got this weighty, deliberate feel to it. Every swing, every dodge, every block, it all matters. It's the kind of system where you have to commit to your actions, and that adds a layer of tension to every fight. Do you go for the big, heavy attack and risk leaving yourself open? Or play it safe with quicker strikes and focus on defense? The choice is yours, and that's what makes it so engaging. And the variety in gameplay mechanics keeps things interesting. There's more to this game than just swinging weapons around. You'll find yourself experimenting with different builds, weapons, and abilities, trying to figure out what works best for your playstyle. It's the kind of game that encourages creativity, letting you approach challenges in a way that feels uniquely you. Exploration is another big highlight. Bleak Faith rewards curiosity. There's always something to discover. Next we have Infinity Nikki. This game is such a delightful mix of creativity, adventure, and pure fun. It's one of those titles that doesn't just give you a world to explore. It hands you the keys and says, go ahead, make it your own. Whether you're experimenting with mechanics, solving challenges, or just taking in the gameplay features, Infinity Nikki keeps you engaged and smiling all the way through. One of the most exciting parts of the game is how interactive it feels. It's not just about going from point A to point B. It's about immersing yourself in everything the game has to offer. There are tons of little moments that reward curiosity and experimentation, whether it's discovering a clever way to solve a problem or finding a hidden interaction you weren't expecting. The mechanics are incredibly satisfying. Everything feels intuitive and polished, so it's easy to pick up, but it also has layers of depth that make it fun to master. Whether you're tackling challenges, trying out different approaches, or just experimenting with the tools at your disposal, it's all so fluid and enjoyable. There's always something new to try or a different way to engage with the gameplay. It feels like the developers really wanted to give players freedom and creativity, and it shows in how many options you have to interact with the world. The puzzles are another highlight. They're clever without being overly complicated, which makes them feel rewarding, but never frustrating. Solving them gives you that little dopamine hit, like you've just figured out the missing piece of a puzzle, and it makes you want to keep going.